Hello everyone, I'm Angie Cara, but this video is not for kids. This is another edition of book reviews for grown-ups who love fairy tales. Today I'm going to be talking about The Last Storm by JD Linton, and this is a book that I absolutely loved. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was incredible, and I didn't expect to love it that much. I only read it because after 2024 was done and I was rushing to finish my book list, the last two books were really heavy nonfiction books that were good but very dense. So when I finished those and I still had a few days of vacation, I was like, you know what, I just want to read something kind of lighthearted and fluffy, and I don't even really care if it's all that good. I just want something fun. And it was fun, but it was also extraordinarily great. There was just something about it, and I'm not even quite sure why I loved it so much, because there's a lot of the similar like romantic tropes, and you know what, maybe that's why I loved it so much, because there was a familiarity there. But the story moved along very quickly. The writing style was really great, and the characters, while they shouldn't have been as capturing as they were, just like when you look at them on paper, you're like, read it before, but there was something about the way they interact together. The book is told, you go back and forth between her perspective, Ara's perspective, and his perspective, Rogue's perspective. And I think that back and forth really allowed you to see their evolution as romantic partners, and their evolution as kind of what they wanted out of the relationship. It's enemies to lovers, so they kind of start off really hating each other and wanting nothing to do with each other. And then over time things evolve, and the magic is just, it has this really cool elemental kind of energy to it that I really enjoyed. It's a lot about perspective shifting and understanding that the stories we were told throughout our lives have their own perspective and their own agenda, and sometimes they're not true, and how it's kind of a coming of age story in that sense, and that learning the difference between what is true for you and what you were taught to be true, and kind of how that emotional process all works, and as well as the personality empowerment works as well. So I highly recommend this book. It was whimsical, it was fun, but it was also very captivating. Like, I nearly cried at a few points. I was gasping. There was some shocking moments and big reveals, and the transition from enemies to lovers and the whole fated mates aspect of that was just amazing. If you love love and you love magic and you love fairies and you love fantasies, definitely check this book out. So I'm going to read a couple sections. I don't want to give too much away, but I am new to the Kindle world, so just bear with me while I find my highlight. All right. So the first one I'm going to read is from Ara's perspective, and she is a reader, so there's that added element of libraries playing a very big part in the story, which I love. This exact reason was why I read, to escape into stories of adventure and lust and soul-consuming passion, everything lacking in my real life. I have lived through books, and they mended me for a time, but once they were finished, the hole in my soul returned, the emptiness in my chest that comes with crashing back to reality, reminded of duty and responsibility, rules and confinement. In my heart of hearts, I knew no book would ever fill the ache that so constantly plagued me. It felt as if everything I desired was just out of reach, just barely out of sight, taunting me but never revealing itself, and I was desperately chasing it in every book I devoured. They were just a patch, holding me together for the time being, but I was always left waiting, wanting for something, anything, just more. This feeling, this trapped, no end in sight, suffocating feeling, is what led me to the local pub for the first time years ago. On a whim of rebellion and bravery, I had snuck out of my window and down the vine, escaping into town. It had been so late that night, the pub was the only thing still open, so I'd slipped in and never turned back. It became my place of peace, where I could just be normal, free, where I could just breathe. It was where I needed to go now. And how many of us cannot relate to that? Also, quick note that the spice in this book, 10 out of 10. It is well done. It is effective and captivating without being like cringy, if that makes sense. It was very well done and very much written for the female gaze, so that was lovely. All right, so the next part I'm going to read is from his perspective, from Rogue's perspective. It's one of his chapters, and it's when he first sees Ara. As soon as the door closed, it opened again. I froze as a woman entered. When she glanced up, she looked straight at me, and I felt everything at once, the pull, the lust, the blinding, overwhelming need. The bond. I was staring at the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and she was my mate. I knew it in my soul as we locked eyes. Her long dark hair was hidden in her cloak, as if that could hide everything about her. She stood out like stars against the night sky, commanding attention. Her eyes were a piercing storm gray, the same color as the blue-gray tunic. Her lips full and red, begging for my kiss. My fingers itched to touch her as I felt her gaze roam over me, and then she looked away, walking to the bar. Did she not feel this? I gaped at her as she waved at the blonde bartender. They clearly knew each other. What is she doing here, of all places? If they knew each other, she must have been here before. What was a fae doing in Arena? I can never say that. My gaze locked on her as I lost myself in thought. When she peeked over her shoulder at me and found me still staring after her, she immediately jerked back to the bar. Clearly she felt it, at least, but why would she ignore it? Does she not realize what this is? So lovely. One of those books I wish I could go back and read for the first time, but I am excited because it is a part of a series. So I will be reading the second book, and hopefully it's as good as the first, and if so, I will do another video. Well, if you have read it, if you're going to read it, please leave me a comment. I love to hear from you guys. And if you read it because of this video, check back and let me know how you liked it. I would love to hear. All right, my dears, so don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, give it a like, and subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys next time. Ta-ta for now.